Hello, guys. Welcome to Miguel Moran Vlogs. And here we're going to talk about match day 2 and the key matchups. For the first matchup, we have the Czech Republic and South Africa. Both teams are coming off a loss, South Africa to Mexico 2-0, and the Czech Republic coming back, getting lost, and blowing a 1-goal lead to South Korea. Czech Republic is not too bad. South Korea is one of the best teams in Asia, so South Africa look horrid. They play very foul. They've gotten 2 red cards, so it's very questionable. I think the Czech Republic pulls it off. I think I'm going to give them a 1-2-0 win. Switzerland versus Bosnia and Herzegovina. Both teams coming off a 1-1 draw. Swiss were disappointed by the Qataris, who managed to get a draw in the last minute. And Bosnia drew with Canada. They were the ones that scored first. However, Canada came back. Switzerland has a really quality side. It was one of the mid-tier, one of the better European sides of UEFA. And Bosnia, this is their first World Cup in 2014. However, in their match against Canada, they looked like a completely better side, and they were playing pretty well. For this matchup, do you go with UEFA rankings, or do you go with overall play? I think I might go with Switzerland. It could be a draw, but Bosnia does not fail to impress me, and Bosnia looked really good against Canada. Switzerland kind of looked flat against the Qataris, but I think Switzerland picks it up and grabs a 1-0, or they might get a point out of Bosnia because Bosnia plays relentless. Next up, the host Canada and the Qataris. Canada is coming off a draw, which congratulations to them. This is their first ever point in a World Cup. Now, for Qatar, this is also their first ever point. Qatar getting a point against Switzerland, and Canada getting a point, obviously, against Bosnia and Herzegovina, which we have talked about before. I think Canada is going to this match as the overall favorite because they are one of the 3 hosts of the World Cup. I think they played well against Bosnia towards the end. End product, it was kind of iffy against Bosnia. I think they had a chance to win it, but Bosnia was still a good team. The Qataris, well done, stealing a point from the Swiss. This time they got the Canadians. And the Canadians, led by Jonathan David, a prolific forward in Europe. That's going to be a rough matchup. And I'm going to give this game... It could be a draw where both teams get a point. But if we go by winners and losers, I think I'm going to give it to Canada. Canada is just a way better squad than Qatar, even though Qatar is allegedly one of the best teams in Asia. Mexico and South Korea is a very interesting match where both teams are coming off victories against South Africa and the Czech Republic, respectively. Mexico is playing at home. They play much better at home against all competition, and I think South Korea is going to have a difficult time going up against Mexico, who is the best team in CONCACAF, one of the best teams in CONCACAF. You can argue between the U.S. or Mexico, but right now, play-wise, I think the U.S. is better slightly based on this performance, but I think Mexico will show out, and they will grab a 3-0 win against one of the better sides in Asia. Next up, you have the United States and Australia. Both teams showed out on their debut. The U.S. beating Paraguay 4-1. Dude, Paraguay in qualification only conceded 3 goals in qualification. And the U.S. put 4 on them. 4. And the U.S. looked very sound. Another huge surprise. Australia. We all thought, coming into this tournament, Turkey was going to destroy Australia. No. Australia won 2-0. And they played very impressive ball. They defended really well. They played very defensive after the first goal because they didn't want Turkey to get a lot of shots off. and that was the game plan, and the game plan went well for them, and just attack on the counterattack. I think both teams are coming into this with with expectations of winning and making a run. Personally, I think the U.S. has a way better side than Australia. But if Australia does the same thing that they did against Turkey, it's going to be difficult for the Americans. But overall, I think the Americans' quality is way better. And I think their style of play is a lot better. So I'm going to give it a 2-1 American win. Scotland versus Morocco is my next one. The Scottish came off a victory against Haiti, which was controversial. I think Haiti had a couple penalties, but the Scottish, led by John McGinn, who scored the goal against Haiti, really showed out, and Scott McTominay is going to really step it up, I think. Now you have the Moroccans, who came off an exciting 1-1 draw against the Brazilians. Morocco's quality in that match was very class. They have players that are class. And I think going to this game, I think Morocco's got to show the class a lot more as being the African powerhouse, being one of the African powerhouses, or as you would say, the African powerhouse. Scotland, they have to rely on Scott McTominay, John McGinn, Andrew Robertson. They have to rely on their players and hold firm against Morocco's attack. But, however, I could see this game going to the Moroccans. Morocco's skillful. They play very creative. They're comfortable on the ball. They can retain possession. I see a 3-0 win with the Moroccans. For our next match day, you have the Brazilians, who came off an exciting 1-1 draw again, led by Vinicius Jr. scoring a goal, versus Haiti, who came off the loss against Scotland. I thought Haiti had a chance to win it. I think the refs were more favorable towards the Scottish, but Haiti showed out really well, and I was very impressed with Haiti. Now, this is one of the biggest tests that Haiti has. After Brazil, you have to play Morocco. But the thing about Brazil is they're very creative. Vinicius Jr. scored the goal against Morocco. Will Vinicius Jr. have a big tournament, and will Brazil rebound after what happened against Morocco, where they were expected to be the overall favorites against the Moroccans? Will Brazil come back? How many goals will Brazil score? And how will Haiti hold up against a Brazilian attack with Vinicius and Rafinha? Maybe Neymar's coming back. But look at Brazil's midfield. Look at their defense. Look at Alisson. Brazil is just filled with stars. I think the only lacking thing is Igor Thiago. Yeah, he scored 20-plus goals in the Premier League with Brentford, but you can't take into account that he did not look good against Morocco. He looked kind of like lost against the Moroccans. But this could be his bounce back game, and I see Brazil beating Haiti 4-1. I think Brazil's more class. I think they have a lot more class, but Haiti is very impressive. I'm very impressed with Haiti. I think we might see a 2-1 or a 4-1 win between Brazil. I think this will be a Brazilian victory. Next up, Turkey versus Paraguay. Both teams coming off losses. Turkey to the Australians and the Paraguayans to the Americans. I think both teams are coming with the understanding that we need to win this match. It's going to be attack versus defense, will I say. Turkey has a really good attack that people have to understand. Yes, they did not put any shots on Australia. That's because Australia played a lot of defense after they scored the first goal. And with the Paraguayans, they're defensive. World Cup qualifying, only 3 goals conceded. When they came to the U.S., 4 goals conceded, but they did score 1. I think it's going to be a match versus attack versus defense. And you have a lot of quality players from the Paraguayans and a lot of quality players from the Turkish. I think it balances out, and I'm going to say 1-1 draw. If Turkey shows their class in the attack, I think Turkey could pull it off. If Paraguay plays sound on the defense, I think Paraguay will win. But I see a 1-1 draw. Now, for the other match day, it's going to be the Dutch and the Swedish. The Dutch coming off a 2-2 draw with the Japanese, which was a very exciting match. The Dutch showed a lot of class against an Asian powerhouse in Japan. And I think they're coming with that momentum is we need the 3 points. And Sweden coming off a really big win against the Tunisians. 4-1. That was impressive from the Swedish. But they have a harder test than the Dutch, who is notoriously a European powerhouse. They're one of the better European sides despite not winning a World Cup in their history. But Netherlands always produces class. But Switzerland, they got a challenge for them. The Dutch defense, Dutch midfield, led by Van Dijk and De Ligt, Dumfries on the wing, one of the white right backs. The midfield led by De Jong. Their attack, the Dutch attack looks, Somerville, he had himself a match against the Swedish. Beautiful goal. I think the Dutch played beautifully. And the Swedish, Isak played well. Alexander Isak played really well against the Tunisians. They're led by him. Lindelof played really well against the Tunisians, but I think the Dutch is a step above, and I think I'm going to give the Dutch 1-0, probably a 1-0 or 2-1 victory, or maybe a 2-0. Give me the Dutch. Transitioning from the Dutch comes their arch rivals, the Germans. The Germans are coming off a 7-1 victory against Curacao, which was their first ever World Cup match. And the Germans are disciplined. They score, they defend, they pass the ball well. They're just disciplined. And that carries, and that can lead you to making a World Cup run. Led by Neuer at goal. The attack by Felix Nkemba. Joshua Kimmich is on the defense. But their attack, Jamal Musiala, creative player. Germany has the players, and they play their roles respectively. But they're going up against a potential dark horse in the Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire. They're led by Amad Diallo, who scored the game winner against another potential dark horse, which was Ecuador. But this will submit them as a dark horse. How will the Ivorians do against a very disciplined German side? How will they do? Germany plays like Germany. Everybody plays a role. But the Ivorians have a chance to pull it off. They have the players. They have the tactics. They play beautiful. However, I'm going to say a draw. I'm going to say a 0-0 draw. I think the Ivorians are class. They're one of the better AFCON teams. But you can see Germany or the Ivory Coast winning. If Germany lapses, it's going to be the Ivory Coast. But if the Ivory Coast lapses, Germany's going to put up a lot of goals. But I could see a draw, and that will be a huge result for the Ivorians. I'm going to say 1-1 draw. Next up, you have the Ecuadorians and Curacao. Both coming off losses. Curacao losing 7-1 to the Germans. I think people should be proud of Curacao. This is their first ever tournament. And usually with first-time debutants, they either do well or they don't do well. And Curacao is a very small nation, and they should be proud that they made it. But they're going up against the Ecuadorians, who lost 1-0 respectively to the Ivorians. And the Ivorians are a really good side. Ecuador's a really good side. They can attack. Ecuador had some goals in their last match, and they wasted a lot of chances against the Ivorians. Now, against Curacao, which is considered a weaker opponent, will Ecuador take advantage, or will Curacao get their first ever World Cup points? And I think Ecuador wins 3-0. Ecuador, as a nation, is one of the better South American nations. And Curacao is a really good CONCACAF nation with a bright future. But for right now, I think Ecuador beats Curacao 3-0. Transitioning, we are talking about two nations, both with polar opposites. A disappointing nation in Tunisia versus a team that's really on the come up in Asia, in Japan. Japan with a 2-2 draw against the Netherlands, who is considered a UEFA powerhouse or a world footy powerhouse. And Japan's on the come up. They played quality against the Dutch. When the Dutch scored, they responded. The Tunisians, they were disappointing. Very disappointing. 4-1 loss to the Swedish, and they sacked their head coach after the first match. It's not looking good for the Tunisians, even though they have quality players. But I think coming to this matchup, I think Japan just outclasses them. Japan is becoming one of the best Asian teams in the world, and I think Japan can easily beat Tunisia. Unfortunately for Tunisia, they look flat. Like, anytime like a manager switches midseason is never a good sign. And I think the Japanese will expose that, and I think they're going to win 2-0, 3-0. I think Japan's probably going to move on. From a nation that's up and a nation that's down, you have the next matchup between a country who got a good result and a country who's disappointing, who was supposed to win their last match but didn't. It's the Saudis, who come off a 1-1 draw with the Uruguayans, who led for most of the matchup. Huge result for the Saudis. Now for the Spanish, drawing 0-0 with Cape Verde. Impressive by Cape Verde, but the Spanish are looking to bounce back against the Saudis. Here's the historic theme. The Spanish never do well against their first match day, but they tend to equalize and get better toward the tournament. And I think you're going to see that with the Spanish. The Saudis want to get another shock result like they did in 2022 against Argentina and currently with Uruguay. I think the Spanish are looking to make this comeback, and I think they will do it because Spain's quality is there. They have the attack, they have the defense, they have David Raya at goal. Spain is just a better team in general, in my personal opinion. And I think coming into this match, they're going to prove why they're the best country in the world and why they are a favorite. And I think they're going to come out and attack on all cylinders. And I think it's going to be a 3-0 win between the Spanish against the Saudis. Now, if the Saudis win a result, I think they're going to have to play like Cape Verde and just defend for their life. Next up, two nations that I thought would win and were expected to win their first match days kind of are disappointing. It's the Belgians and the Iranians. The Belgians drew 1-1 with Egypt. Egypt looked really good. Belgians, they had their chances, but they did get their goal, and they got the 1-1 result. Although, the Belgians still have class, and Kevin De Bruyne almost scored that goal, that free kick. But the Iranians, 2-2 draw against New Zealand. Coming into this game, I was expecting Iran to be another dark horse. They play very beautiful on the attack. Really good on the attack. They can respond, they can score. They're very beautiful on the attack. The issue with the Iranians is their defense. They cannot defend. And you're going up against the Belgians, who are notorious for creative play and scoring goals. Jeremy Doku, he might have not played the best against Egypt, but he's very skillful. How is Iran going to handle that? How are they going to handle Kevin De Bruyne or Romelu Lukaku coming off the bench? That's going to be very difficult. And Iran's defense is not good. Iran's defense, truth be told, they could have won that game against New Zealand, but their defense is very shaky. And with how shaky the Iranian defense is, I think Belgium's going to have a field day. But Iran has beautiful tactics on their counter. They play the passes well. They do their attack right. It's beautiful, but their defense is so shaky. I'm going to say the Belgians win 3-1. 3-1. Taremi's still their best player for Iran, but I think the Belgians pull it off. From a nation that is performing really well, with a 0-0 draw against Spain, is Cape Verde. Are they looking to get this momentum or get a point against the Uruguayans, who are looking to get their first 3 points after disappointing against the Saudis? Uruguay has a class led by Captain Fede Valverde. Valverde as captain. Against the Saudis, they were attacking. They were on the front foot. They missed a lot of chances, and they're very attacking. Cape Verde, on the other hand, with their 0-0 draw against Spain, shout out the 40-year-old keeper. Historic performance against the Spanish. Really put his nation on the line. Now you have to do it against the Uruguayans, a slightly inferior opponent to the Spanish currently. But the Uruguayans still have class, and they can also make a run. They're always considered a dark horse in any World Cup now. And if Uruguay could finish their chances, I'm going to give it to the Uruguayans. But Cape Verde could surprise again and give us another 0-0 draw. But I think Uruguay is going to pull it off. I think it's going to be a 2-0 victory. Cape Verde has a lot. This is their debut, and they did get their point. But this will be one of their... They did get through the toughest challenge in the Spanish. But I think Uruguay really wants to prove a point, and I think they will with a 2-0 victory or a 1-0 victory. But Cape Verde was impressive, and they will have a bright future. Give me 2-0 Uruguay. New Zealand, coming off an impressive 2-2 draw against the Iranians. They impressed me, and New Zealand's counterattack was very impressive in their quest of getting that point against Iran. And then they have to face against a team that also got a point, the Egyptians, led by Omar Mamouche and Mohamed Salah, obviously. They have a challenge against the Egyptian attack, and can New Zealand play the same way that they did against the Iranians? In my personal opinion, I think Egypt's defense is more sound to play against. So I think Egypt is not going to allow New Zealand to really counter those attacks. I think Egypt has a stronger defense in their group, so New Zealand's going to have a harder time. Even though they are led by Chris Wood and Elijah Just, who scored both times against the Iranians, he's going to want to have a big match against the Egyptians, who are led by Man City starman Omar Mamouche and former Liverpool, who's leaving to go somewhere else, Mohamed Salah. I think the Egyptians will get a win, and I think it's probably going to be a 1-0 or 2-1 win. I'm going to give it to the Egyptians, whose quality is much better, and I think their defense is way more sound than a lot of other countries that we talk about. Now, next up, you have the Argentinians and the Austrians. Coming off wins. Argentina, Messi hat-trick against Algeria proves that Messi still got it. And Argentina is still a contender at the end of the day. And the Austrians, who beat the Jordanians 3-1. The Argentinians play beautifully. I mean, the way that they create space and how Messi played against Algeria, which is one of the better teams in the World Cup and a better African country. The Argentinians still have class. They still have a really good team. Messi is still going to be Messi. Austria, they play well. Led by David Alaba, Sabitzer, and Marko Arnautovic as striker, who came on as a sub against Jordan, and made a huge impact against the Jordanians. Um, I think Argentina's team is a lot better, and Messi in international tournaments is making a case for himself to win a Golden Boot. And I think Argentina will walk away with a win. I think they're going to walk away with a 2-0 win, courtesy of Messi getting a goal and assist. Another contender that we like to talk about is the French, who came off an impressive 3-1 win against the Senegalese, with Mbappe scoring twice and Barcola getting a goal. They have to face the Iraqis, who are coming off a 4-1 loss in their first World Cup in 40 years. Iraq had the misfortune of playing Erling Haaland, but they have to play the French now, who just attack, and attack. I think the French attack is the best attack in the world, led by Mbappe, Olise, Doué, Barcola off the bench, Ousmane Dembele. Iraq is going to have a hard time, and France will probably score at will. Although it did take them a while to score against the Senegalese, and the Senegalese is an African powerhouse, and they could make a dark horse run or make a huge run. I think the French will just beat Iraq. I think the French beat Iraq, and I don't think it's going to be pretty. It's not going to be the way that they played against Senegal. I think if Norway gave France a hard time, the French will do it 10 times harder. And I think it's probably going to be 6-0 French victory against the Iraqis. Norway, coming off the 4-1 win versus the Iraqis. And Senegal, losing 3-1 versus the French. Senegal is an African powerhouse, and Norway has their quality players, but this is not Iraq. This is Senegal, an African powerhouse. And I think Senegal has the defense led by Koulibaly, who can mark Erling Haaland and Martin Odegaard. I think looking at them, I think the Senegalese will have the players to pull it off, still led by Sadio Mane. And yeah, I think going to this match, I think Senegal's going to look at an easy 3 points. But you can't count the Norwegians out, led by Erling Haaland as striker and Martin Odegaard as the creative playmaker. I think Norway is going to have a hard time against Senegal. And I think Senegal's going to prove why they are a dark horse and one of the best, or the best, African nation. I'm going to give Senegal a 3-2 victory over the Norwegians. Another team, despite losing, looked very impressive was the Jordanians. Losing 3-1 to Austria, Jordan showed that they can fight and they can compete with the rest of the world. Yes, they were down 2-1, but the third goal came at the end of extra time due to a penalty. But Jordan should keep their heads high because their attack looked beautiful. They play really good on the ball, and a lot of their teams play in the Middle East, in the Middle Eastern leagues. But you have Algeria, who, despite losing 3-0, is one of the better African sides in the world. And with that comes Algeria wanting to prove themselves. After giving up a hat-trick to Lionel Messi, and the Jordanians can hang with anybody, really, especially Algeria. But I'm going to give them a draw, and I think Jordan's going to get a point. I think it's going to be like a 2-2 draw or a 1-1 draw, because both teams can attack. They have the class. They have the quality. So I'm going to give them a 2-2 draw, because both teams are impressive, and Jordan can withstand any opponent. And they did against Austria, who is notoriously a better nation in terms of footballing, against the Jordanians, who this is their first World Cup. And they looked very impressive on their 3-1 defeat. I think they can hang with anybody, and they will do it against Algeria. 2-2 draw. A team that should hold their heads high versus a team that disappoints. Team that lost 3-1, Uzbekistan, is going up against a team that drew 1-1, Portugal, led by Ronaldo. Uzbekistan might have lost 3-1, but they did get a goal. And they've shown that they can hang with pretty much everybody. Portugal looked disappointing. 1-1 with the Democratic Republic of the Congo, despite the Democratic Republic of the Congo we slept on having very quality players, mainly Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Bismo, who scored the goal against Portugal. Portugal looked very disappointing. Their ball didn't look entertaining. And Uzbekistan, despite losing 3-1 to Colombia, proved that they can really hang with anybody. Like, they didn't concede the third goal until, like, the final minute of stoppage time. Two of their goals coming late in the match. Uzbekistan will defend against Portugal. I think they will. And if Portugal got their tactics right and their play right, because I don't know what's going on with Portugal. If Portugal keeps playing the way that they do, Uzbekistan will get 3 points. Because Uzbekistan can hang with anybody. And they can score and defend. Despite going against Colombia and losing 3-1. But I think if Portugal gets it right, I think they might win 1-0. I think Portugal wins 1-0. If they don't change, it's going to be 0-0. Or Uzbekistan will get a 1-0 win. England coming off a 4-2 win against the Croatians. Revenge for 2018 semifinals. Going up against Ghana, who scored in the last minute, the 94th minute, against the nation of Panama. Ghana looked weird. Yeah, they scored and won, but Panama had their chances against Ghana, but failed to take advantage of it. But it's Panama. It's their second ever World Cup. England against Croatia, they look class. Despite conceding 2 goals, they still put 4. Kane is proving to be one of the best strikers in the world, having 2 goals, one of which being a penalty, and Jude Bellingham being a cam, knowing how to score, and Marcus Rashford getting a goal. I think England will have a field day with the Ghanaians. I think 2-0 victory. England is going to prove that they are still a contender despite finishing runners-up in the Euros. 2 teams that came off a loss, one of which almost made history of getting their first ever World Cup point. Panama versus the Croatians. Croatia might have lost 4-2 against the English, but I don't see any issues with the Croatians playing against the Panamanians. Panama, they look flat. It's not Panama's golden era yet. Panama is not where they can get a point yet, and they don't have the quality yet. It's going to take a while for them to get the quality. Croatia, the last 2 World Cups, a semifinal and a World Cup final. Croatia still got it. They could put 2 goals. They got the juice. They know how to score. They perform really well. And I think Croatia will beat Panama 3-0 or 3-1. I think Croatia can handle Panama with Luka Modric leading the midfield. A team that drew and a team that won. Colombia versus the Democratic Republic of Congo, led by Wisa, who scored the goal against Portugal. People should really take the Democratic Republic of the Congo very seriously. They have very quality players. They have really good Prem players. with a lot of experience. Wisa plays for Newcastle, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka was at Manchester United before he went to West Ham. They're relegated, but I think Wan-Bissaka is still going to go back to the Premier League. And Tosibe at center back. Their defense looks very sound. Despite Portugal being disappointing, I think the Democratic Republic of the Congo should be at their respect and be taken seriously. As for Colombia, they beat Uzbekistan, and I think they look much more class. They look more energetic. It's gonna be a clash of energy and quality, well, class, and I think both teams have a chance. And I think people will say the Colombians will win because they make the World Cup and they're one of the best South American sides. However, the Democratic Republic of the Congo will probably pull off a draw, and I'm gonna say probably gonna be 2-2. They got really good players. They know how to score. They can defend. They got good tactics. So I'm gonna say 2-2 draw. Thank you guys for watching my YouTube video. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will be trying to upload more. Thank you for watching.